Today's video is just a brief explanation as to how and why certain people were caught up within the terrible times of the great witch hunts and witch trials that went like wildfire across the whole of England and here in East Anglia and Suffolk where I am, and it's something which I feel a connection to because I have a family member that was sadly caught up within all of that. There's many reasons as to why people were accused of being witches, and it wasn't just women, it was men as well. And I'll explain some of those reasons in this video so that it gives a little bit more depth into what happened back then and why so many people were accused of being witches. Now, to begin with, we need to address that Matthew Hopkins, the self-appointed Witchfinder General, he made himself a lot of money by going around from village to village and going through the parish records and getting the townsfolk to accuse those that would be witches and those people that were sadly tried and were found guilty and lost their lives to that man and his cohorts. If you think of the amount of money that that man was earning at that time and how in demand he was and why he was making so much money, you would understand why he had such a motive to keep going. So there's that side of it. And for somebody that has got no thought or feeling towards his fellow man or woman and is happy to see somebody who's innocent die, I think that speaks volume to the man's character. But who are the people that were being accused of witches? Well, obviously you've got the people who live on the outskirts of life, shall we say. They may be a little bit different. They may have had elements to themselves and their lives that set them apart from the other village folk. They may have had some sort of physical anomaly which set them apart from other people, so that people sort of kept them at arm's length or felt that they just wanted to keep away from these people, even though they'd done nothing wrong at all. So any kind of marks or deformities or differences that made somebody separate to the village folk, that would be taken into consideration when the fingers started being pointed. Another element was also the hysteria that came from that era when people became full of religious ideas, shall we say, and they were very quick to deem anything that wasn't classed as strict Christian, obviously it must be in league with the devil. So there's that side of it. And then you've got the people which were like a lot of my family members going back in the day, which were people who knew about the seasons, how to live off the land, heal people from the land and heal animals. They knew all about the old ancient remedies and what to take out of the hedgerow to heal somebody's ailments, that kind of thing. And those people who were able to do such things were often called cunning folk. But those cunning folk, up until that particular point in history, were very useful. They were the healers. They were the people who you went to when you were in some sort of bother that needed advice or a remedy. So they were much loved people in the community until that era, and then once those fingers started pointing, then obviously they would be dragged into it because they were making supposed potions and they were in league with otherworldly things. And then there's the side of it where you have certain, say, villages that there might be a particularly pretty girl there or an attractive lady that somebody feels that her husband is looking at her a bit too much or is taking a shine to her. So a woman would quite happily get her friends together to accuse an innocent person of being a witch and using her magic to beguile and use her womanly ways to make the husband want to stray or look in a different direction. So there was that side of it, which is the equivalent of bullying, really. So even though there was no basis to really accuse that person of being a witch, if you had people that were going to back you up, then obviously you were going to be seen by those that were looking for witches. You would be seen as having a credible reason for doing so, especially if you came up with ideas such as, oh, they have put a spell on my husband, or he's betrothed to me, but he now wants to be with her because she has put him under a spell. So there's that side of it. Then there's also the side of which when people started blaming each other for things like if a cow started to act differently and wasn't producing so much milk as it once did, or chickens stopped laying eggs, or there was a tree that fell and hit somebody, or the harvest was bad, it all got blamed on somebody, and that was also another reason to be accused of being a witch. So anything which would have happened naturally, whether somebody became poorly or somebody died, then that would be good reason to put the label of witch onto somebody who you wish to blame. And the last one which I'll mention today is to do with wealth. There used to be a time when people used to take in those that had less than themselves. So if there was a widow and she fell on hard times because her husband was gone, people used to offer charity from their own homes, whether it was food or somewhere to stay. And as times changed and local landowners become more wealthy and they show off their wealth, people start to change and think, oh, well, I'm not going to be so charitable because I need to show people that I've got quite a lot so that I can make my standing in the community seem more valid and higher than it has been. So when people used to go and ask for help, they were receiving less charity from those that they used to be able to rely on. And then when something happened to the person who refused the charity, say for example there was a death in the family, or somebody had a nasty fall, or something happened to one of their animals or their food, that kind of thing, they would then blame the poor soul that had turned up at their door asking for help. And not only did blaming somebody else who they had turned away, not only blaming them as being a witch, it also helped them to feel a bit better, because they might have had a little bit of low-key guilt because they turned that person away. But if they turned that person away and then it turned out they were a witch, then obviously it was something which they weren't going to feel too bad about after all. So those are just some of the reasons why people were labelled a witch, and the subsequent executions and all the trials and everything that those people went through, they were innocent people who were caught up in a time of hysteria and a time of when people were making money out of doing dreadful things to their fellow humans, and a time when people did not have any foibles at all, nor care as to what their words or actions were going to cause. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.